Welcome to the Creepin' It Real Show, your one-stop shop for weird news, spooky, otherworldly, and paranormal shenanigans. We'll take a dive into what's going on in creepy pop culture. You can follow us on Twitter at creepin_it and like us on Facebook at The Creepin' It Real Show. Do you have a paranormal story you'd like to share with us? You can email us at creepinitrealshow@gmail.com. Hello. Welcome to The Creepin' It Real Show. I am Kristi. I will be one of your hosts tonight from Atlanta. And with me are two amazingly awesome people. First, we have Yardley. How are you doing, Yardley?
I'm doing great. I look forward to tonight's conversation. Great night here in Atlanta, and it's always cool to bring it all home with both of you ladies.
Awesome. How are you, Moni, besides your pizza?
Doing great because pizza, and I'm not much of a drinker usually, but last week I had the opportunity, as you know, to get a little buzzed with you guys. And not only do I love talking to you guys, but then add that to it. This is the only, not even job, the only thing in the world I think that you can do that actually comes out better when you're just a little buzzed. So I'm repeating that same process. Yeah, for sure. Yes. I'm repeating that same process, sipping wine in wine country here.
It just lowers that filter of like the pressure, you know?
I was really mean to Lori Petty, though. I don't know if I regret it because she's still pretty annoying, but I was like, damn.
Well, I don't regret it. I have not lost sleep over Lori Petty. I'm kind of pissed because I picked out a wine special for tonight and opened it up and it sucks. And so and it's expensive. So, you know, you're like, I'm going to splurge. I'm going to try a new wine. And it's okay. It's not as good as my standby that I always get, the Clos du Bois. I always get that. It's the same exact wine. It's a lot cheaper, and it's just better. Otherwise, my taste buds have changed. I don't know. But, it's good. It's doing the job, clearly, because I'm yapping away. But anyway.
Always go cheap, girlfriend. That's the moral of that story. When it comes to booze, just go cheap.
Yardley, are you imbibing, or are you keeping it clean tonight?
Well, I'm drinking a little whiskey, but I don't know if I would necessarily advise. I guess it depends on what you're drinking. Probably with wine, you can probably get some great stuff for under $10. But when it comes to whiskey, I think that you have to kind
there you go.
No,
you're going to be noted.
No wild turkey there. No, I don't blame you. If you're going to drink whiskey, you can't go cheap. That's smart. Unless it's like Fireball, which... Well, you've seen me on Fireball, so maybe not a good idea. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, you know what? I didn't really learn until probably over the last year. I never associated Fireball to be a drink that necessarily a lot of guys drank. Because my experience, with Fireball, I've never drank it, but my experience with seeing people drink it was always in New Orleans, and it was never guys who drank it. But I've been hearing some people recently, for the most part, say that they drink it, and I'm like, but cinnamon, I'm just not I don't know if I can do that.
I used to be. I just can't do whiskey. You've seen me on whiskey. It's not pretty. I am a wine, vodka. I got to stick to that. I can't do tequila. The last time I drank tequila, I woke up on top of my car after I broke into a zoo. So I stay away from whiskey and tequila. It's just not a good idea for me. So I you know what you can tolerate. Each body's different. I'll do, we do these cinnamon roll shots here every once in a while, which is half rum chata, half Fireball. And it tastes like a cinnamon roll. It's so good.
So when it comes to horror movies, whether you're watching, a movie or television, what are both of your drinks of preference? Do you stick with the wine, or do you go a little harder, so to speak?
I actually don't drink that much wine. This is actually sangria. Because I want to put rum in everything. So rum and Coke. And
cannot do rum.
I'm still a college girl in that respect. Because like I said, I don't drink that much. So when I do, I go back to whatever I used to always drink. And that's rum and Coke. And it's rum and pineapple, or just straight rum, or
you like
rum
sweet
in
stuff.
Yes, I do. I do
Oh, I
like
can't
sweet
do
stuff.
sweet. Yeah, no, I
Or
gotta do.
beer.
I
A
gotta
good
do.
beer.
I gotta do a vodka with a dry soda, like a LaCroix or a San Pellegrino, or a Chardonnay or a rosé. I can't. That's it.
You
That's
have
what I stick to.
class. That's the problem.
I'm literally no. I'm straight up housewife. Those are all housewife drinks. I am a ridiculous housewife. Everybody's like, "Wow, you're so knowledgeable of wine." I'm like, I'm really knowledgeable of the wines I like. That's it. I don't know anything else about any others. So, but anyway, I'm super excited about this show. I'm super excited and I'm super nervous. So I apologize if I come off as stuttery or I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I'm going to be talking about something I haven't talked about since I was 12 years old. So it's going to be and I literally didn't talk about it because it terrified me so badly that I had to just put it away and pretend like it never existed. So it's going to be something that's probably not going to be terrifying to you, but it's going to be me reverting back to my 12-year-old self and reliving that moment as myself at 12 versus the 40-something person that I am today. So anyway, and I'm super excited to talk about the movie that we have. But first, I want to get into our weird news because we're actually kind of organized here. We actually take notes and we try to prepare just a tiny bit. And our weird news today is pretty interesting. And I got to tell you, Yardley, I've read your article twice, and I still don't know what the fuck it means. So I'm going to need you to dumb down this article and explain it to me a little bit better.
Yeah, well, essentially, the article that I'm bringing to the table today is basically the dill-don'ts of Wi-Fi or Bluetooth adult toys. Well, apparently, and this is a short version, apparently we have a lot of adult toys that are out today, and a lot of them are able to be used through Bluetooth. And apparently hackers have figured out a way to hack into the generic pin that these devices have. So essentially, if you are in your neighborhood and you're using a sex toy, if somebody has a device that can pick up Bluetooth signals, a lot of these sex toys, what comes up under the Bluetooth thing when you put up your pin is actually the name of the toy. So if someone has this device and it picks up your Bluetooth, they can hack into the Bluetooth and turn your sexual device, up high or or down low. So, I mean, you could be, having a great time, in your special place. And then somebody can crank that thing up and pretty much blast your innards. So I don't think that is a pleasant thing to experience. But we live in a day and age now where people are pretty good and getting very creative with fucking with other people. And I thought that was pretty funny because those toys, anything that runs off of Bluetooth, seems to be something that's easily accessible for people to kind of have their antics with. So we're definitely going to include this link in the show notes, and I'm going to post it to our Facebook page, Creeping It Real. And I want everybody to check it out because there's a lot of lingo in the article that really explains more in depth about how this happens. And I actually reached out to a friend, actually a mutual friend of Kristi and myself.
I saw this interaction, yes.
Yeah, Dave Shackelford from Voodoo Security. And I wanted to kind of confirm with him if it was actually possible for this to happen. And he's like, yeah, it's totally possible. Now, I didn't have an opportunity to talk to him to get more in depth. I'll probably talk about this with him next week when I see him, but it's definitely something that's true and something that could happen. So I have to ask you, and I'm very curious. I already hear you laughing, Kristi, so I know where you're going to go. But I want to ask Moni, is this something that would concern you? I mean, I don't think that anybody's going to think about, oh my God, somebody might hack into this, but there's a chance that somebody might hack into it. So is this something that would worry you if you were to go there with a jackrabbit or something?
Well, now, I mean, would never have occurred to me before this, but it's like, first of all, who has this kind of time on their hands? Like, are they doing this from work? It's the same people that play practical jokes or edit those super long videos that you see online. It's like, and like, why? Is this something you do to your ex? Is this something you do to a complete stranger? Like,
and then how do you know it's working? Like, how do you know? Like, I don't know.
Well, it says
Crank
Wi-Fi
that bitch up to
camera,
10. You'll know.
And you hear
it, right?
Well, I mean, just think about this scenario. How about this? Let's just say you're a guy and you are a person who has the ability to pick up these Bluetooth signals, right? And you are in your office. So let's just say the guy or the girl, picks up the device, finds a signal, and it might be coming from the office because they have these devices that you can like have on and
nobody
you can
knows.
zap yourself. Yeah, nobody
Wherever.
knows. So if you're in the office and you see that something is, one of these devices' name comes up, and you just crank it up, and then somebody just starts tap dancing around the office.
Sorry.
You know that you have them, and it'll be quite funny. Now you'll probably, I wonder if that would be something that would be fireable offense, because the person who's the victim, I don't think is going to tell. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
So
it
this-
wouldn't
told off
be,
themselves
it wouldn't
by
be
dancing around,
discussed. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is something that you could probably get away with, but like Moni was saying, who has the time? But there's always time
Are
for
you kidding?
antics.
They're
You know
at
what I mean?
work. There's lots of time. Everybody's fucking
Talking
around
about
at work.
having them in butt plugs? Is there a camera in the butt plug? I'm so confused
So
about
here's-
how
okay,
these
here's my
high-tech
question.
devices even work.
Here, I'm asking for a friend.
Uh-huh.
How do you know that there's a Bluetooth device in said device? Like, how do you know there's a Bluetooth thing in there to begin with? Like, what's the...
When you're
Oh.
searching to connect your Bluetooth,
Exactly.
doesn't it look for other Bluetooth devices in the area?
A lot of them, when it has a generic pin. So I guess on whatever device that they use, it'll actually have the name. So let's just say Jackrabbit, for example. Back when I used to work at this adult store.
You used to work at an adult store?
Who hasn't?
Yeah,
Did
it
it, was it Starship?
good times. No, it was actually 9.5 weeks that turned into Insurrection back in the day.
I remember Insurrection. I know Insurrection. Yes.
And
Wow.
they had
You
some of
learned.
these devices. So when you pick it up, it would like say Jackrabbit on it. So you would know that that's what you're dealing with, or whatever the name of the
But
sexual.
what's the Bluetooth thing for? I'm so confused.
Well, so that you can, I guess you could be kind of hands-free and make your device go up or down when you're using
Like
it or
on
whatever.
your phone?
Well, yeah, you can. Well, no, you can like, there's so many ways with this Bluetooth thing, but yeah, you can like do it with your phone, or you could do it with the special controller or whatever that it has.
Can you tell Siri to do it for you?
Okay.
So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Alexa-
Be like, Siri, open this app and then turn it up.
Yeah,
It's
so
like lazy, actually, if you think about it.
yeah, but like, the article that I have, it's very detailed. So it's kind
Yes,
of,
it
Boy.
is.
I'm just giving everybody the Cliff Notes version,
Yeah,
but
but your detail, like I read it and I still didn't know what the fuck they were saying. I'm like, what?
It's-
No, I don't understand.
It is
just-
not
No.
a sexy article, let's put it that way.
It's
we
techie.
should have got him on to talk about it, but
Totally.
I'm pretty sure that he'll have some comments about it when I break it down to him. I think he read the article as well, but it's definitely something that's doable. I mean, anything that is over Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, all of these things are probably, have the potential more or less for someone to hack into it and mess with it. Now, I know that your odds are probably low, but if you're that one, you know what I mean? You're probably going to feel violated.
Hey, it's
while
like
getting-
it isn't the like, but it's the same thing where whenever like you have baby monitors and people are on your baby monitors being like, "Hey, get out!" Like hacking into your baby monitors and scaring the shit out of you because they can, I guess, right? Because they can, they
Yeah,
can do it.
exactly.
So, all right, Moni, what's up with your snake song? Your snake story?
I honestly cannot compete with that. I have been rendered almost speechless.
Would you like to skip or no?
Maybe I need a Bluetooth device to get me go. Wait, what?
Okay.
All I have is a 23-foot snake who attacked a man, and the guy actually wrestled with the thing and won, even though he has some severe injuries, which he's kind of badass. This was in Indonesia and in a small village, and the guy does not want to talk about his injuries, and the family actually kicked the reporters out of the hospital room before he could talk about any of it, which is just kind of badass to shroud it in mystery. I wrestled with a snake for a half hour, I win, and I'm not even going to tell you how it happened. But what's more creepy is that these 23-foot long pythons, there's more and more of them are attacking people in these remote villages in Indonesia. Actually, a man never returned from, what was it, palm fruit harvest in March. Instead, they found scattered pieces of fruit and a picking tool and a boot. It was like a fucking horror movie. A 20-foot long python was there, alive and swollen from a recent meal. So they sliced it open and found the missing man, dead and covered in reptilian digestive juices.
Yummy.
Yeah, it's it's just like every horror movie you could imagine. And I don't know, they're citing climate change and deforestation, which seem like the big demons that...
It's palm oil. They're harvesting palm oil, and it's causing horrible deforestation across the planet. It's awful. Yeah. They need to figure out hemp or coconut oil or some shit, because it's really bad. And these snakes are fucking hungry, and so we're all out there chopping their shit down, and so they, we can be a meal. Why not?
I think, though, if I saw a snake that size, it's not like they run fast. I probably would, get out of its way.
Funny, they're dropping down off the trees. They ain't just,
the one guy saw it laying in the road. The guy that
got
attacked
that was
in this, though.
Stupid.
He was like, I'm going to wrestle this thing out of the road. I'm like, leave the fucker in the road. He was there first,
Yeah, no, he's probably, digesting a meal, laying out in the sun, and this bitch is like, yeah, I'm going to eat me some snake tonight, and, try to get him. But a lot of these snakes are in the trees, and so they're off cutting the trees down, and it's like a tick. They'll just fall on you, but unlike a tick, instead of...
They start wrapping you up.
Sucking a little bit of your blood out, they'll just suffocate you and make your heart stop beating, so...
Well, I'm tired of these motherfucking snakes and these motherfucking trees, okay? So...
I love... snakes. I had a pet snake.
I love snakes too. It was a snakes on a plane joke. Come on, anybody?
I know. I got it. Yeah, but my heart.
Over like a lead balloon.
We all got it. Yeah.
I love snakes. I had a pet snake, and he was awesome. But I will not ever have a spider. But the snakes they're freaking badass, and bless their hearts, they're just hungry. So good for them. You know what? Maybe these assholes should stop knocking down our damn forest for palm oil, and maybe they won't have these problems. I don't know. But
there you go.
Anyway, well, I have one last bit of news before we get into one of our main topics. A dude. Okay, I'm gonna try to talk it without laughing. This is gonna be hard. A dude in Wyoming was arrested for public intoxication, and he told the police that he's traveled back in time to warn us of an alien invasion. And he's saying that he's from the year 2048, and he's wasted because the aliens had to fill his body with alcohol to make time travel possible. And that he's saying we're going to be invaded by aliens next year. And he's telling this town in Wyoming that they need to leave as soon as possible to avoid this alien attack. And he also asked to speak with the president of the town. The president of the town. I mean, president? I don't think there are presidents of towns. Maybe I'm wrong, but...
There is where he comes from. You don't know. I
guess so. Maybe times have changed in the next 40 years, but yeah.
Well, that's the reason I drink too, is just to, so I can time travel. That's exactly why.
Hell yeah. If I could turn back time.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, I'm singing Cher. I know. Yes, it's the wine. But yeah, so I don't know. I think if you're gonna go big, I mean, yeah, that's the way to do it. Say you were time traveling by aliens. I don't know, but I thought that was a interesting story. And this guy looks like he did not come from the future, by the way, at all.
No.
He looks like a reliable character, okay?
Right? Yeah.
Like we were talking about last week. He looks like a very reliable witness.
I love his flavor savers. So apparently in 2048, flavor savers are still around. So that's great.
Well, of course.
Thank God. I mean, you hope and pray that never goes out of style, but you just don't know.
Right.
Nothing says I'm telling the truth like a chin strap beard.
Exactly. So anyway, all right. Well, so we talked about it and we decided for the first segment, we're going to do a little review on a movie that I recommended called, here I am, The Taking of Deborah Logan. And it's a like a mockumentary, I guess you would call, about a woman who has Alzheimer's. And the story is that there's a film crew coming to kind of document her descend into Alzheimer's and the disease. And, Alzheimer's is already a horrifying disease. It's scary enough when you think about it. To have Alzheimer's is the ultimate fear, I think, when you grow older. What a horrible disease to have. And so just that in itself could be a horror movie, but then they've added some stuff in there, and I'll just start off and say that I really loved this concept because it's hard to make movies, A, that are found footage, and B, about possession. And this is pretty much what this movie was about. And the concept that they came up with was very impressive to me. And I enjoyed it. And I had some pretty good scares. I think there was a few times that I'm like, really? But I can't, nowadays you have so many avenues of different people and different stages of horror that when you look at the budgets and you look at what these people are doing with what they have, it's really impressive. So, Yardley, what do you think about this movie?
You know what? I think overall, I thought it was solid. I mean, it took me about 30 minutes to actually start getting into it, but I like the content of the movie. I have to say, I'm kind of like yourself. There's a few parts in the movie that I thought were actually pretty good because they weren't necessarily dealing with a huge budget. That's probably one of the reasons why it was constantly, for the most part, being shot at night. But I was actually already a fan of Jill Larson, who plays Deborah, because I used to watch All My Children back in the day, and she played a character called Opal.
And see, I was a fan of Anne Ramsey because I loved Mad About You, which Anne Ramsey, the daughter of who you're talking about, was the sister of Helen Hunt on Mad About You, the sitcom from like whatever the 90s but so I was super excited to see her. I haven't seen her in forever, so I agree with you. It was good casting.
Yeah, she did a great job. I would be interested. Maybe I'll try to reach out to management to see if we can maybe talk to her, because I really want to know how she prepared for that. Did she know someone who might have had dementia or Alzheimer's? So I thought it was pretty good. Now, as we start digging a little bit deeper and start breaking down some of the things that were actually in the movie, hopefully we'll be able to do justice of her performance, because her performance to me was the only one that really stuck out, and you don't necessarily know. Yeah, you don't necessarily know the turn that the movie takes until you get about, 45 minutes into it. Yeah. But I thought for the budget and for what they did, I thought it was okay. It was definitely better than Dead Awake. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
It was definitely better than that.
Moni.
Yeah, and I thought that it was solid, low budget goodness. I don't know if I necessarily got scared in any of it, but there were some scenes that kind of made me cringe, you know what I mean, or roll my eyes. But overall, I thought it was a solid flick.
How about you, Moni?
So we are apparently all my children friends because I have watched that show started in 1970, and I remember watching it as a very small child and for years and years growing up in my house. And I remember her as Cortland, right? And she has always been Opal Cortland. She marries the rich man, and she's got her uppity and everything, and she was amazing in that. And for me to be that young and notice the performance and enjoy an older woman as she was to me at the time, it really made her a standout. And then to see her in this, I mean, she had to carry this film, everything from being a sweet old lady that you could see why her daughter loved her, why people would go to bat for her, why they would care about, you had to care about her, or they had to make you care enough about her for her to be worth all of the trouble she became as she started descending into both the Alzheimer's and or the possession that overtook her. And by the way, thank you for putting up that GIF of her eating or trying to consume that little girl's head. I didn't see that until we started recording, actually. And now I'm just sitting in the dark watching this over and over and over. And you were saying for a low budget film that they did a pretty good job. And I'll have to tell you that scene, that little moment looks really, really good.
Yeah, that fucked with me a little bit. I'm like, what the hell? Because if you think about it, with the serpents all through the movie, it was a very good kind of, it's a serpent, the snakes, again, Moni, that you talked about. It plays into the serpent thing. Like, she's devouring that child, spoilers, like a serpent. And
we talked about the victimizing of children being kind of next level fucked up, like when we talked about it.
Yes.
And definitely I have small girls, and the fact that she took this cancer patient out of the hospital was just devastating, and seeing the father's performance and like, how did you let my daughter get out of this building?
Right.
Find her, the panic on top of panic of not only having your little girl be kidnapped, but having her be so sick and need medical attention. Yep. And then fucking having her body consumed by someone who thinks that they are possessed by a serpent. That's good times.
Yeah.
So a little funny thing about that too is when I had been doing a little background into the movie, I had accidentally spoiled myself before seeing it, finding out that scene existed. So I kind of was expecting that. However, my husband, who doesn't get freaked out by almost anything, was on the bed with me while we were watching it. And I was kind of looking at my phone, kind of whatever. And all of a sudden he just goes, "What the fuck is happening?"
So real quick, before we get too much further into what the movie is about, or our own personal feelings about the movie, we'll talk about what the actual movie is about. And it's about a woman. She's elderly. She has Alzheimer's. Her daughter's taking care of her, and they're struggling with money and decide to recruit a team, like a documentary team, to record her journey through Alzheimer's. And Mia and Gavin and Lewis are the documentary team, and they show up and want to do this documentary about Deborah, who is suffering from Alzheimer's. She's normal at the beginning and then starts to show some really erratic behavior, and her doctor is kind of saying at the time, this is normal, it happens, but maybe she's just aggressively suffering from Alzheimer's versus the normal trajectory. And then you've got her just major rapid decline, just disturbing behavior, scary behavior. Can we say that? She is violent at times, doesn't remember a lot of things, but the issue is that her behavior is just not matching up with a normal Alzheimer's projection. And, backstory is that she was a switchboard operator, and then you've got the scene where she's at the switchboard naked and starts talking about I'm sorry. Hold on. Because I'm reading this text, damn it! I'm like, I'm reading text, and it's not showing up on my computer, and it's gone. So whatever you just texted me, it's me, I'm sure, because I have a bunch of fucking... I have a bunch of 15-year-olds in here. So who knows what they're doing down there? There's like 6 of them down there. Who knows? But anyway, so she's a switchboard operator, and she, for some reason, shows up in her attic naked, like constantly trying to connect the line 337. And it rings and nobody can understand it. And there's a lot of mysterious shit that happens behind all this. And of course, there's a lot of meaning to it. So you really have to understand and pay attention, because I watched it twice, because I watched it a couple of weeks before and then I recommended it. So then I'm like, well, I need to watch it again. And, so it's interesting watching it the second time, because after you watched it the first time and you know how the ending goes, surprisingly enough, it's a really good movie to watch again, because there's so many clues leading to what the actual problem or thing that happens later, which of course it is that she's possessed. And, you know, I don't want to spoil a lot of it, so I really enjoyed the concept. I don't think that the whole thing was executed perfectly, and it can't be when your budget's low and you're, like you said, filming at night and you do what you gotta do. And most of the time I'm like, turn the fucking lights on. God dang it. I mean, she's scurrying around the house sick and levitating, and you're like, let's just leave the lights off. So yes, there were things that I'm like, oh, come on. But I think the majority of it, with the concept, I was really impressed with this. And I love indie horror movies for this reason. They really push the boundaries and create new things. Like, yes, we weren't totally excited with the last movie that we, watched, but it's opening the door for more movies in that subject. And I think that's what's so great about these movies.
So I was raised Catholic, but I pretty much don't practice anything anymore, but I have those kind of ideas in my head now. And the idea, the thought, I don't know what I believe, but the thought that demons could possess you, obviously, I believe is possible, though I've never seen it, and it scares the hell out of me, of course. Ha, the hell. And seeing this, what I do have experience with is dealing with someone who has Alzheimer's and dementia and is a little farther down the road with it, and someone else very close to me who is coming at the beginning of it, I think. And I can speak to the fact that they are definitely, you can say that just knowing what the disease is, that they're open to these kinds of possibilities, but I just know that, this person who I deal with like almost daily is, he gets phone calls from these scam companies, and he'll say, they called me and they told me that I had to get this credit card, or, and it's actually really sad. And he'll have times where he will not know if he was having a dream or if someone was really talking to him. And there ended up being a situation where there was a gun that we didn't know that he had involved, because he thought that people were trying to break into his house, but he may have been dreaming or who the hell knows what. And so I could definitely see, and so that was very intriguing to me in this film, to get back to the point that for quite a while, you could not know that something supernatural was happening. And then I also liked that when they started taking her to the hospital, and she was having what they basically were thinking were medical skin issues, but were probably snakes or demons trying to come out from inside of her skin, that kind of goes back to what I was saying about proximity. She should have been in a safe place. She was in a hospital. And most films, it kind of plays hide and seek when they get back to the scientists, where they say, oh, we don't see any symptoms like that here, so we're just going to kick you back home. But no, she was in the hospital, and her, the skin on her back is moving all around, and they have no idea what to do with her. So,
Yeah.
there was all kinds of times when they should have been able to stop this. And of course, nobody had any idea what to do. Would anybody, even if you were like, okay, this person's clearly possessed. So what do you do
No.
about it? Go
What do
on
you
Google
do?
and find out,
Yeah.
find someone random with weird hair to come stick adrenaline in your leg? Like, what do you do? So I enjoyed this film from those perspectives. And I know we need to get on to our main point, which is Kristi's story, but I just kind of wanted to jump in there on that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like I said, there was a lot of roll your eye moments, but there was also a lot of just great concepts that you just don't see in a lot of possession movies or a lot of found footage movies. I mean, there were those staring at the wall bullshit moments and but like I said, turn the freaking lights on moments. But there was some good content in that movie and it provided a lot of scares and I think that's really ultimately what people are looking for. So I would really recommend this movie for what it is. It's an indie horror and I thought it was fantastic for what it was. So would you guys recommend it or no?
I would.
I would, yeah. I mean, I would. I mean, if someone asked for something along these lines, I would definitely recommend it. Like I said, it's not the worst, and they did the best that they could with a limited budget.
Right,
I
right.
thought that they did okay, but
Yeah.
um, this definitely isn't the worst thing that I've seen. I thought it did well, and it was better for me after probably the first 35, 40 minutes.
Yeah. I agree with you because you didn't really know which way it was going at the beginning. It was so much build up that it was like, all right, then it makes sense later, but by then later you've kind of forgotten. So when I went back and watched it again, all that stuff from the first 40 minutes made so much more sense because I knew what was going to happen. And that's where they lose people is when you try to go too much build up at the beginning when you don't know what's going on. Like these people are making it and they know what's going to happen. So it's like, oh, this is going to be great. But if you don't know what's going on at the beginning, you don't get a lot of the setup that they have for you. And then so when I watched it again today, I was like, wow, wow, wow. Yeah. I mean, it really made a lot of sense to me. I wish they just included that with a little better commentary, but they didn't. So, anyway, all right. So, I'm going to get into my story. Like I said, it's going to be crazy. I'm really nervous to talk about it, but so when I was 12, witnessed somebody that was possessed and had an exorcism. And it was not intentional, and I did not plan for this to happen. And it was something that I literally slept with my parents on a cot on their floor for months after because I was so scared. Um, it is something, this is the first time I've ever talked about it. And so I'll just get into the story and kind of explain. And if anybody has any questions, please ask. I say 12. I have a horrible concept of time. So I could have been freaking 20. I wasn't 20, but I could have been older than that. I could have been younger than that, but I'm guessing 12. I was in middle school, I'm pretty sure. I belonged to a church. I lived in a small town, and it was a small, very small church. Right now, I belong to a church that just their high school groups, like auditorium, is 3 times the size of the church that I belong to. And just a very small church. And we were always trying to recruit people and our friends to come to the church. So we would do these lock-ins. And the lock-in was basically where middle school and high school members of the church would invite their friends to come to the church, and we would sleep in the church. And we would have dinner, and we would have a service, and then we would have games, and then we'd sleep in our sleeping bags in the church somewhere. We would do hide and go seek and all these silly things. And it was always fun. I mean, I wasn't uber religious when I was a kid. I was very critical of religion, but my mother was super religious and I was forced to go. And these were great times for me. I loved going to these lock-ins. And so we had a lock-in and there was a bunch of kids there. And like I said, middle school to high school. And we had our dinner Everybody, we were all just chilling and we're having a great time. And then we had our service. And this happened according to the people that saw it, this part, because I didn't see it. During the service, a girl that belongs to our church had brought a girl. And the girl that was the guest was sitting there, and it was reported by her friend that brought her and some people sitting next to her that during the service, she was writing 666 on her knee, like with her finger, like over and over again, just like Groundhog Day. And,
weird.
And then this comes from the youth minister's assistant, if you'd call him that. He was in high school, a senior in high school, and he was a close friend of mine, even though I was in middle school. We were very close. And this is what he told me, is that they pulled her aside after these kids told them what she was doing. And they asked her, what do you understand what this is or what you've done, what you're writing? And she just looked at the youth minister, straight in his face and said, what are you wrong? Or what's wrong? Are you scared of us? And the youth minister probably shit his pants, basically, and called the minister of the church to come in, and they started to talk to her. And when this started to happen, the older kids in our group really didn't know what to do. So they kind of corralled us into the auditorium. And this is where the girl and the youth minister and the pastor were. And they've got her in the front of the church, and they're talking to her and praying with her. And she's starting to, I don't know how to explain this. I mean, she was like rotating her head and crying and screaming and like being like she didn't like to be prayed on. And it was, you could tell that she was very uncomfortable and that they were scared. Their faces like were very obvious. And
did her crying sound like normal at that point?
At the time, yes. This moment, yes. It was literally a teenager crying as much as you can say. Like she was kind of rotating her body and crying and kind of giving them like, I don't want to talk about this.
Okay.
And just
so you guys are pretty confused at this point.
Yeah. I mean, we're all just sitting in the back on the pews at the very back of the church, but the church isn't very big, so we can hear and see everything. A little confusing, and I think a little confusing for them. I don't know if they quite knew what to make of it. And then finally, our pastor stopped everything and said, because my youth pastor had called the main pastor of the church over, and he said, you know what, I need to talk to somebody else. So he leaves, and apparently he's got the Catholic priest of one of the Catholic preachers of this town, which there's not a lot of churches in this town, on speed dial. And the priest, probably 45 minutes later, comes and says, and the whole time, now realize this is just a girl. She's just a normal girl. She's wearing a blue t-shirt, jeans with the knees torn out, which is kind of the style now again. She was just a normal girl. She had been eating with us. She had been playing with us. We were all having a good time until the service. This wasn't somebody that was acting weird or that you would have been creeped out by in any means until the service happened and she started writing the 666 on her leg. And so the priest comes, and that's when things really get crazy.
Go on.
They start doing the basic rites of an exorcism, which I didn't know at the time what the fuck that was. We're just sitting in these bleachers because they didn't have time to call our parents or didn't think to call our parents to say, yeah, your kids probably shouldn't be watching this. And we didn't want to go anywhere else because honestly, we were kind of scared. I mean, this is not normal. This just wasn't normal. And so they've got her there on like because you know where the preacher preaches, there's like these steps up and you're kind of looking up to him, and they've got her up there, And the priest is there, our pastor is there, and the youth minister is there, and they're praying over her. And as the priest kind of takes this over, like he's apparently seen this shit before, and he's doing the rites and he's praying, and as he's doing all this, she's making like these throw up motions, like she's throwing up, but nothing comes out. Like she's puking, but nothing's coming out. And our pastor's like, what's happening? And the priest says, this is her exorcising the demons. So she does this a few times, and they're, praying and doing all these things. And we're just literally kids sitting there in these bleachers watching this. And this is the part that really makes me sick to my stomach to talk about. But she starts to puke again, like doing this throw up motion. And then all of a sudden she stops in mid throw up, and she like acts like she's sucking it up like a vacuum cleaner, like, and then she looks straight at me and says, psych. Like, she's not real. I don't know what this means. I'm 12. I probably wanted to piss my pants. It scared me horribly. And that, they're still praying over her, and they're still doing all this. And then all of a sudden she just goes back to the agony that she was in, like, And finally they take a break, and the youth pastor that I was friends with, not the assistant youth pastor, is told by the youth pastor, all right, I think we just need to take these kids home. We can't get a hold of a lot of their parents, so let's just take them home. And they took us home. And he came over, the assistant youth pastor came over the next day, and it was like, what happened? Like, what? And apparently she was exorcised of her demons. And the priest and the pastor, had a conversation with her that she had apparently been messing around with Ouija boards for a long time. And this had somehow latched onto her. And she supposedly went off and left a very productive high school life. I don't know. But I will tell you that after what happened to me, after watching this from her, after that moment when she looked at me, when she said those things, like psych at the time was like a big word, psych. And I was afraid to even look out my windows for weeks. I was terrified that I was going to see her face wherever I went. Like she was going to follow me or find me, or why did she look at me? It scared the fucking shit out of me. And I'll never forget it. Yeah. I'll never forget it. And it changed me as a person because I really believed. I mean, maybe I didn't go to church, but I believed that there is a heaven, there is a hell, there are angels, there are demons, there are these things, they're there. And I saw it. And I saw this woman, this girl, crying because, like you said, was her voice did change as the progression happened. Like at the beginning, it was very innocent, like her typical voice, and it did change later. And when she did look at me and say those words, it wasn't in her voice, it was in a different voice. And it scared me horribly. Like even today, I wonder why that happened. Why did she look at me? There was like 15 kids sitting in those bleachers. And she looked at me and said that. And it was, or whatever the fuck it was that, was going on. But it scared me. It scared me so bad that I was afraid to be alone for a long time. Like I thought this, whatever it was going to be there, like looking at me or seeing me, or those eyes, like we're going to be in a window or in the closet or in the hallway or under my bed, or I was terrified. I slept with my parents, which my parents suck. My parents picked me up. They knew what was going on. They never asked a damn word. And that's just my mother. I mean, she's not a good parent. And never asked, never cared to ask, never thought, oh shit, what the hell that happened? Never asked and knew what happened. I don't know if she just didn't know what to say or didn't believe it or what, but she let me sleep on her floor next to her bed. But I was terrified of what happened.
Well, Kristi, whenever you think back at this experience, at any point have you ever thought that potentially, because in the 80s had its fair share of horror movies, poltergeist or possession movies and things like that coming out of the 70s into the 80s. I actually didn't The Exorcist, wasn't that in the early 80s?
It was the 70s.
The late 70s. Okay. Mm-hmm. The thing that kind of jumped out to me was you said that there was a pause and the young lady had said, psych. Have you ever thought that maybe she was just putting on an act to kind of, one of those people who kind of wants all hot tubs cold? And she was just like, you know what, I'm going to put on an act, freak everybody out. And, she could have been totally making it up. Have you ever considered that could have been potential?
No. I'll tell you why. Because it just didn't, what was happening and the voice, it didn't seem possible. When you hear a person and you hear them talk and you hang out with them for a while, and then you see a whole other sound coming out of somebody that doesn't seem possible. Like I can make some sounds or be silly, but this wasn't something, it almost wasn't audible to a human. It was a weird, crazy sound, I don't even know how to explain it. It didn't fit. It just wasn't fitting of a person talking. It was high and low at the same time. It was like a high, low, too high, too low, mixed together, all jumbled up in a crazy animal sound. Like, it just wasn't right. It wasn't a human talking. And that's how
Did you ever talk to any of the other kids about this?
Yeah, I mean, of course, after everything happened and we came back and, the youth, bless the youth pastor's heart. I mean, the guy's like, hey, let's bring more kids into the church. I don't think he quite signed up for something like that. And we talked about it, and he said, what we witnessed was disturbing, and to just trust in God, of course. But how do you tell a 12-year-old to do that? Because that's stuff of nightmares. How do you trust in God when you see something like that? It's not like why did God allow that? I mean, what? It took me a long time to come back to the church. I'll just tell you that. I was scared. It scared the fuck out of me in more ways that I can even explain. And I believed in God. It made me believe in God, because when you see something like that and you see something that's capable of that behavior, you automatically know that then there must be another side. There must be, if this is possible, then the other is possible. And then after talking to my youth pastor assistant and him saying, we did exercise, we did help her, so eventually this did happen. And she was extremely thankful, and she's, gonna go back to her church. She had a church, and that happened, and it worked. And so then so then God's there. Yes, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. I mean, I was 12, but I can tell you that what I heard, if I was 42, I couldn't work this out. It's not like something that I think back and go, oh, that. it still doesn't make any sense to me. There is no rhyme or reason to this woman's behavior, or girl, whatever. And it's stuck with me for a long time. I never talked about it, and I never told my dad about it. I never told my stepsisters about it. I've never told my friends about it. The only person I've ever talked to about this is my daughter this year, when I found out she was playing with Ouija boards at her friend's house. And I lost my shit.
Yeah.
And got very upset and freaked out. And I had to tell her, here's what happened. And I want you to understand and listen, because I'm not saying this is 100% true, but I can tell you, witnessing it made me a very big believer and made me very much against Ouija boards, because it just wasn't right. There was something very, very evil and wrong with that girl. Whether it was, if you want to be a scientist and say schizophrenia, I don't know, but even that doesn't make sense to me.
Right. And as far as your daughter and the Ouija board, I mean, if there's even a chance that it could have let something like this happen, you can't take it.
Absolutely. I mean, they were like, oh, we were just asking, who's my boyfriend gonna be? And who am I gonna marry? I'm like, I don't give a fuck what you were asking.
And that's exactly when something evil will come through, because they'll be like, oh, these cute little girls aren't going to know what hit them. Yep.
You are opening a door and inviting things in that you don't understand. And that's why, I hope, I don't know for sure if they're listening to me. I hope they're all fucking downstairs, so I'd like to go down there right now and wring their necks. But I don't know. I mean, it's scary. But I can tell you that I was scarred for a long time witnessing that. It was not something that just a normal person can do. It just, even watching her do the throw up motion was, you would had to have been a fucking actress of epic proportions to be able to behave this way. It wasn't, and even then, I still don't think I could buy it. It happened. I saw this and it wasn't human. It just wasn't human.
Well, on that note.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's fucking crazy.
I'm sorry that happened to you, but it's kind of like a scar on a guy's, like something really fucking horrific happens to him, and then he shows up at the bar and all the chicks are like, where'd you get that scar? That's super hot. You know, it's like, it made for a really good podcast this week, I hope. Should
I go to the bars and be like, let me tell you a story? No.
You should be the chick that shows up in a horror movie. You should kind of make yourself look creepy, which would be hard for you because you're gorgeous, but kind of dress yourself up as like a hobo, and then be like the crazy lady that shows up when they're like, I don't believe that. That's bullshit. Blah 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 blah. And you'll be like, let me tell you this shit that happened to me. Yeah. Saw this girl fucking around with a Ouija board.
Yeah. So, I think all in all, just don't fuck with Ouija boards. Don't. It's just not smart. Just don't do it. I'm sorry. I saw a crazy bitch that did that, and it just ain't good. So
I've seen things, man.
Yeah, it sucks, but I don't know. Anybody have any questions? Because I know it sounds crazy, and I know it's hard to believe, but trust me, I saw this, and I still, to this day, do not doubt this girl wasn't possessed.
I wish you could. Have you ever heard of? I know you told a little bit, semi-immediately afterward, but have you kept track of this woman now? Is she?
No, I have no idea. You know what? I couldn't tell you her name if you asked me. And she was not a part of our church. She was a guest of one of the girls in our church, and I never saw her again. And you know what? I'm glad, because I don't know what that would have done to me if I'd just been going on my married, because I only lived there when I was a kid, when I was in high school, and then I moved away. And if you could just understand like the horror and the terror and the fear that I had watching what she went through, and the realization of what it meant scared me so badly that I'm really glad you know what, maybe I did and I just fucking blocked her out. I don't know, I can see her face as clear as day now, but maybe I blocked the fuck out. It's a small town. So, I don't know. No, I never saw her again. We never discussed it again after that next weekend, after the lockout. The assistant youth minister that I said was my friend, he's the one that came over and told me about the results of what happened. And he also was extremely traumatized. I mean, he joined the military and he was older than me. His dad was a cop and went off to the military. And even when I got into high school and he would come back, it really stuck with him too. So I knew, like, okay, it's not just me. I'm not the only one that this fucked with, but nobody else. We never talked about it again. This just wasn't a time that you're like, we're going to just talk about our feelings. This was the 80s and nobody actively did that. It was just, all right, this happened and now we move on and that's it.
Walk it off.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's what we did. So we did that and I didn't for a long time. And then I finally did, and I completely forgot about it forever, for 30 years, until I heard my girl and her friends talking about how they used an Ouija board. And I freaking marched in that room, and I lost my shit. And as I was losing my shit, this whole thing came back to me. And I had to say and think, I've got to tell them, because you don't want to come off as a crazy bitch with no reason. Now, if you believe the story, great. If you don't, great. But at least you understand where I'm coming from. Like, this fucked up thing happened. And so please don't make that mistake, that this girl did. And they can believe it or not, but it's still freaky enough that I would hope that they would just stay away from them. I don't know, but
for sure.
So that's that. So that's what's happened to me, and it's not, it's probably y'all are listening and thinking, what? That's it? But yeah, it fucked me up. So I appreciate letting me sound off and talk about my crazy shit. Anybody have any questions, comments?
Well, this is definitely the format to kind of vent and get that off your chest. It's an interesting story, and seems like it's going to be something that's going to be with you for quite a long time.
Yeah. Forever. Because when you see somebody that's like, looks like they're inhumane, their eyes look like they're not quite human, stare directly in your face and make that kind of a comment, you don't know what the fuck's going on, and it will mess with you for a long time. And I still think about it, for sure, all the time. So anyway, that's that. That's my story, and that's why I love this show, because we get to mix the crazy shit we see on TV with our own crazy shit, like you, Yardley, last week. We get to mix business with pleasure, right? So
absolutely.
I think that's probably going to do it, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. Moni, would you like to tell everybody where they can reach you?
Yeah, and just a real quick a tease for next week. So I don't know if the Creepers have noticed that we take turns, although we are all equal hosts, we take turns in coming up with the theme and kind of the ideas for that week. So next week is going to be my week to choose, and we are also due for another movie review. So within the next day or two, we are going to be posting what movie we're going to be watching, and that way, hopefully, if you're interested, you can watch along, and it won't be so spoilerific for you. Or you can, if you'd like, you can wait until we've watched it and see if it's worth watching, like the last one that we watched was not worth watching. Totally my fault. But at any rate, yes, you can follow me on Instagram at Moni Bear. By the way, that has been serving to fuel my hate fire. So I have opened my Instagram from a private one to a public for this purpose so that you guys can actually follow me, and it's been happening, and that's been great. But somebody who's like somebody connected in Hollywood had my actual husband, my real husband, Billy Idol, performed in his backyard in Vegas last night. So it was like, I got this new follower, and I'm like, I wonder who this guy is. And he was like, oh, this is a picture of Billy Idol in my backyard last night. And I was like, that can't be true. And I sort of looked into it, and it was fucking true. So, yeah. Anyway, follow me there on Instagram, Moni Bear, MoniBarre. Twitter at Rebel Moni, MONY, like the song from my husband. Yardley, what about you?
You can follow me on Twitter at militant_marker.
Awesome. Hey, there's a actual Instagram for the Creepin' It Real show that I always forget to plug. It's Creepin' It Real show on Instagram, and then I am Creepin' Kristi on Instagram, and then Twitter is at Creepin_it. So that's what we've got here. And I'd like to thank my co-hosts, as always. They're brilliant and wonderful. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having this discussion with us and for talking about that hard thing that happened to you. I know that must have been tough, but it was a very interesting thing to listen to.
Thanks. Thank you for listening and, giving me your, undivided attention. Yardley, as always. I know you're going to go back to your pickled peppers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to get back to the peppers. I'm also going to figure out what movie I'm going to break down in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. I'm excited for it. I love when we break down some movies. That's some good stuff. So thanks again, guys, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Trying to stop the nightmares in my head. Stone burning soul, scourge of the undead. Come on. Demon zone, driving you insane. Welcome to the demon's lair. Welcome into despair. Welcome to the demon's lair. I know.